How's everybody doing out there? It's Dave from Flash and Dance DJ and Production Services. Well, today is Wednesday. It is Tech Tip Wednesday, and here we are again talking about waves. So this is part 2-2 of the waves of Super Rack Performer. So today, what I'm going to touch base on is going to be this is going to be more about gain structure, my lead vocalist, or what I do for background vocals, that type of stuff. I'm not really going to be going in depth today. I am just going to talk about gain structure, specifically between console and waves, and then back. And then I'm going to show you as an example what I'm using. I'm not going to go in depth. Like I said, the next video we will go in depth. It's probably going to be a little bit longer. If everybody wants to, we can do it as, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I believe 7 plugins that I use on my vocals, on 90% of all my vocals. I can also show you previous iterations of what I have. I can, not now, but I can insert pictures and things like that so you guys will get an idea of what I'm talking about. So with that being said, I just want to say that Wave Super Rack Performer for me has been a game changer, especially since I've gotten the wing rack. It's taken my mixes for what I feel from here to there, okay? It almost like a bar level engineer or sound mixer, taking what I'm giving off stage, making like a cake, so to speak, taking all the ingredients, which is going into each channel, being pumped into a super rack, doing my little sprinkles and things on top to make it look fabulous and the best it can be. And then that's what I'm reinforcing as a whole. That just gives you a guideline as a way of doing it. So now with that being said, so we are going to focus on gain structure and Super Rack Performer. But what I want to show you is, before we even dig into that, I want to show you my backup plan. So people will ask me, Dave, why do you use plugins inside of the wing, and why do you also use it inside of Super Rack? There's a twofold answer to this. Number one, this is my I think it's post-processing is inside the wing. And what I mean by that is, so everything coming into the wing comes in via the preamp, and at that preamp point, that's the pickoff point for the USB, whether it's recording or anything like that. Everything is pre. So I'm getting signal before all the processing. Now what happens is it goes out by USB to my computer, 1 for 1, if that's how you have it set up. Another way you can use Super Rack is if you want to use it for your effects, if you want to use it for bus work, doing compression and stuff like that. So for me, I use it 1 for 1, so that way I'm using the plug-in chains that I'm using, and they go to the instrument. Now, let's say I'm at an event and the MacBook crashes. Here's the difference between running a wave server and running natively of Super Rack. The difference is if you only have one wave server and it crashes, depending upon how you have it routed into that server, you can lose everything, meaning that all your audio goes down because you're processing everything through it. And the way that you typically run it is over Dante, or there's actually a WSG card you can buy, and that gives you that capability out of this. The other way that you can, like I said with Dante, is I'm actually looking into that right now. Been a little bit behind the curve on that. However, so then once the audio comes out of Super Rack and bounces back over the USB cable into the wing, it then processes it down the channel strip. So we'll start off with the basics, okay, which I'm going to show you right now. And I do have my time lapse so you can see, so that'll be a part of this video as well. All right, so we'll start here. So we're getting audio off a live recording from one of the bands that I worked with at the Jetty. They're called Rockstar Posers, and obviously you're not hearing anything because I don't have any speakers connected. As you can see, this is a full multi-track right here, okay? And the one that we're going to deal with is just this guy right here, the center vocals. And as you can see right now, it's in a quiet part, probably in the middle of a song or a breakdown. And then so basically what's happening is this is going into the M32C, and then it's dumping down to the DL32 into copper. The copper and is then feeding into the back of the wing rack. So right here we got our center channel. So I'm going to show you. So this right here, as you can see on the meter, here is our gain. Okay, so let's see, he's not really talking. He's probably talking. There he goes. He's singing now. And he's in between talking and singing. So then if we come over here, over USB, let's pull this back a little bit, just so that way we don't have the, I always forget about that I installed that honeycomb above me to give more light to this. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set you up right here. So forgive me for the movements. I'm going to try and make this smooth. There we go. All right. This way you can actually see what I'm pointing to and talking about. Okay, so let's get you a little bit more. Okay, so we're gonna set like this. So as you can see, I have so some of these don't have plugins yet. Just the kick drum, which is going to be here. This number 14. If we were to look at the wing rack again, this would be the vocal channel. Okay, so as you can see, like on this kick drum, I have it on minus 16.6 and then minus 7.6. That's because that's what's happening with this one. And see that one right there, when that guy just screamed or whatever, that one peaked off. And as you can see, I do have this at minus 9.5. That's so in the digital world, minus 18 is where you want to live or you want to sit, okay, when you're doing stuff. Obviously like that, that's peaking out. So like that is highly peaking out. So basically what it comes down to is, first, when you come into your mixer, you want to set your gain, and you don't want to use this as your gain volume. Never, never, never use this or your recording software as your pickoff point for what you want for your input. You want your input into the console to be at minus 18, give or take, and you want it to sound good. Okay, no distortion, no nothing, unless that's what's being sent to you. Then once you get that all straightened out, you need to figure out for you and your use what plugins work the best for you and what specifically it is. So right now we're going to talk about a lead vocal. Okay, so for me, as we go through, I'm going to go here so you can actually see it. So first in line is, which this, keep in mind, this has evolved over the last 2.5, 3 years that I've been using this. So it starts off with the PSE, and then I go into into the SSL regular channel. Then I go into a C6, and then I go into Vitamin. Then I go into a CLA 76, and then I go into the RDSer, and then I go into max volume. Now, without going too in depth, I'm just going to touch on each one real quick. Okay, so each one of these I've found out either through a video or reading an article. So PSE stands for Primary Source Expander. So what this is this is a low gate, just meaning that it, without going into too much detail, it shuts the microphone off with any of the transients or anything lacking. You have to set this. This is my starting point of minus 30, minus 15. Just to see how it feels, if it works right, and I have it in the fast release. So that way, as soon as somebody starts singing, bang, it opens right up. Now, the next one is the SSL. Okay, this is just a regular SSL channel from the SSL console. This is based off Chris Lord Algae, what he uses a lot of times. And basically, for me, this gives me a full parametric. Yes, I have an EQ inside the wing, but this gives me more control. As you can see, it's all broken down. It even has filters, dynamics, a gate, has an analog switch, and that's why I'm using it, is really for the analog. The whole thing for me is that it gives me that capability of having warmth in my vocal, so I don't even have to think about it. It's just built right into it. Then the next one is C6. This is a multi-band combination uh, frequency filter, and it is also a shaper, in my opinion. So this gives me my first stage of EQ in this way. And as you can see, there's all the low end is curved off. It's at a perfect point where you still will get, if the person has any low end register between 128 and 64, it still will register, but it won't be anything that's below, I would say, about 90 hertz or so. You don't need in your vocal at all, so that's why I have it configured that way, just so that way it would work. Just give me one quick second. I'm just double checking to see where the cursor is to make sure we're still within performance time, or if it's, yeah, it's still on performance. So so now, so what basically I have is just some notches in there that are taking out some dips, and a little bit of hit the top end of the voice, so that way there's clarity when they're speaking. Now, this is the starting point for me for the vitamin. Basically, this is more of an EQ shaping. It's similar to a parametric, except that it's specific frequencies, and you can actually kind of see them. And as you can see, I have it rolled off again. It does allow it to level out, which is kind of nice. Okay, and then the CLA 76. This is a representation of the old school compressors. Anything that came from the 70s and the early 80s. Chris Lord Algae has about, I believe he has 4 or 5 of these. Any major record you've heard out there in the last 15, 20 years, this compressor has been on that record in some way, shape, or form. So I use this to take my vocals and bring them right up in the mix. It allows me to have that presence. But you're gonna say to me in a minute or so, when I talk about the last plugin, Max Vocal, why do you have 2? And I will explain that in a second. And that Max Vocal came from, the idea of me using it came from Pooch, which is Ken Van Druten. He was the longtime front of house guy for Linkin Park. He's worked with Kiss. Right now he's with Judas, actually Iron Maiden. I take that back. So he's with some of the big heavy hitters, and he uses that. Also, the RDSer. This is point blank a de-esser. So it gets rid of the tss kind of sounds, the harshness, and the 1K, 2K type of sounds that sometimes we all have inherently in our voices. So this just gives a nice little roll off. So as you can see, it actually shows you right here. So at about 39 or so is where it lives. You can actually see it, and then I have it like that, and I have it set to wideband. So so basically anything that's above this point is what it's getting rid of. So once it hits minus 30, it kicks in. So it's actually kind of nice. So that's only when they get really, really super harsh. And then here we are with Max Vocal. Now, if you notice, there's a lot going on in this. You have a threshold, you have a gain, you have a gate, you have a leveler, you then have compressor, I believe. Yeah, threshold and gain. So this is on the high side. So basically what it is this part of the plugin operates for the gate. This side operates for the level. Now what this does is it allows, as you can see the meter, how it's moving. What this does for me is that if somebody starts talking too low or singing softer, it has to hit this mark and not go past it. Okay? This allows all the stage noise to drop right out of the vocal. That's the main reason. So I haven't really gone too in depth, but this is the reason why I use these on my vocal. It just allows me to have more shaping, more little things. Like I said, it adds that little sprinkle. Now, if you come over and you were to look at my strip, which I'm going to show you right now. So here is the actual channel itself. So as you can see, this is everything that's going on. So inside of the channel, we're going to go one piece at a time, just so that way you can see it. Okay, so we're going to start here. So yes, my meter is a little high here. It's also down -5. This is normally up closer to 30, but as you can see up in the recording, it's really loud. It's really, really loud as far as that goes. So we're getting a true representation of what was recorded. So then I have this PSE 545 combiner. It's the PSE LA2A. So yes, I'm doubling up on the LA2A, which is the CLA 76. It's the same thing. The only difference is this also has a PSE. So like I said, if for some reason, we're going to go back to this view, if for some reason this disappears and goes away, I have one built right into my wing, and this is what I use. And as you can see, I have it set to compression. And then for this particular vocalist, that's the EQ that worked the best to shape his vocals. Then here's one of my favorite other compressors. It's the Red 76. And even with the amount of vocal he has going on, look at this, it's barely doing anything. And it's not because I don't need it to do anything. It's because I just want it to be enough to be able to do something. So it's just hitting -5C. When it gets super loud, it goes past -5. So, and here's all the settings for it right here. So you can see that. Okay. So now, as you can see, there's nothing else inserted on here, nothing there. And then typically, if I'm sending this out into a mix, I haven't really configured this, I would actually turn that on. And then here's all the effect settings right here. Normally these are not in groups. This was because I used a different profile to set this up. But anyway, let's go home for a second. So you can actually see, this is one reason why I love the wing, is because you have this view. And then say I go here to home, right? And I actually want to watch what my channel is doing. All I have to do is hit overview, and look at that. You get this nice view, almost like as if you're looking at a physical console that's here. The only thing is you lose your fader, but the minute you hit the faders, there's your fader volume. But I don't ever really need to live on that. When I'm actually at a show, I live on the meter page. This always has the meters. This is my meter reference guide. And as you can see, I have up to 40 inputs, and then I have 8 auxiliaries. And as you can see, the meters are bouncing here in the DCAs, and here's the reason why. I actually run everything off of DCA. So we got drums, cymbals, samples, bass, keys, guitars, vocal, background vocals, and lead vocals. And then on the second half, I've got all my effects, which are right there. So here's my premium effects, which the first two are usually I use for drums. I will then use the vintage verb for vocals as well, with short delay, shimmer, flanger, chorus, long delay, and pitch shift. And people ask me, Dave, why do you have pitch shift and flanger? Aren't they the same thing? No, they're not, because I use the pitch shifter to fatten up pop vocals a lot. And this particular, with all these EQs in here, this is because this is for the Jetty setup that I have. So, with that being said, so I know we jumped all over the place, but here's the whole kicker of this thing. Without proper gain structure coming from your channel, from your source, whatever that source is, whether it be drums, vocals, or whatever, and we went over the vocal chain, basically, if you're getting distortion, or you're getting too low of a signal or anything like that, because you never want to boost. If you can help inside Super Rack or inside of the wing using trim or anything like that, there's nothing wrong with using it. But like a post I saw the other day, somebody was having an issue with the bass player. He had the channel practically maxed out, I think at +40. I'm just going to take a quick look here. Let me go into a channel that nothing's being used. And he basically, whoops, I gotta go into a regular channel here. I apologize. Oh, that's because it's not assigned. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we are going to take stage left vocal where there's nothing. So he had this pegged at about, so I just turned it up, the max is 45. I think it was around 37 or 35 dB, and he had the trim and balance all the way up around plus 15, plus 16. And to be honest with you, you shouldn't have to do that. And what I explained to the guy who in the post was that maybe, okay, other people said, oh, maybe there was a pad on, maybe on the channel, maybe on the head or whatever, because this was for a bass. I said, did you check to see if there's a gain knob? Because sometimes on certain DIs, whether it be guitar or bass, even keyboards, remember keyboards even have a volume on it. So if you have a volume knob, make sure you use a tablet or something and you adjust that to get your minus 18. Don't let the console do all your work. You want a good source. That's one thing I learned from Greg Price, Brad Maddox, Pooch, Robert Scoville. They all talk about not necessarily having the proper mic, but having the right placement. So if you have, for example, you're using the Sennheiser on guitar and it's cockeyed a little bit instead of it being flat against the grill, sometimes if you have it this way or you have it this way, depending upon where it is on the stage, it's going to pick up something else. So now you're not getting true representation of what you want. So you always, always, always want to check your microphone. So now this guy was very cool. He turned around. I gave him one of my SE V7s. He loved it. He thought it was the best thing that he's heard in a while. So he ended up having that and using that. So with that being said, this is why everybody talks about gain structure. If gain structure is not right, if you're not at minus 18 in the digital world, you get distortion, you get artifacts. If your gain is too low, you're going to start picking up the noise floor in any of your electronics devices. Remember, I'm going into a DL32. That's going to have noise floor, even though it's going over a cat cable. Is still this noise that's built into this unit at a certain point, and then you got the noise floor that's built into the wing, and any any power cycles that are going on. You get all that. So you got to make sure that your gain structure, it's a delicate balance to find good volume or proper volume, and that I leave up to you. So with that being said, this is my little talk about what I do for vocals. What I can do is I can grab some pictures as well. This laptop, this MacBook has served me well. I'm about to buy another used one of 2015. I am so happy with the 2015s because I'm able to upgrade them. I'm able to do things to them that the current stuff, you have to pay thousands and thousands of dollars. Eventually, I will spend the money on getting either a 2 or a 4 terabyte, the highest model you can get, and get all the bells and whistles on it. The other thing I'm looking at is getting a 3 to 5 year old Mac Mini that I want to mount inside this, because eventually the goal is, I know we're talking about Super Rack, but I'm just giving you some goals that I'm having here to actually deal with Super Rack. So one of the things I'm thinking about is getting a Mac Mini to put inside this rack that, I want to get 2 of them. I want to get one that's going to run in here. I want one to run in my trailer in the big case. And those are going to have playback music on it. It's going to have the waves. It's going to have the wing edit. It's going to have the M32 edit. And it's going to be on the network. So I can do more control within it. And then all I have to do is, whether I come back here to my workshop or at the, like say I'm doing a 3-day festival, for example, like I used to do one down in Fairhaven. Each day, at the end of the night, before I go to bed, I could pull out a hard drive, plug it into the Mac Mini, or plug it into a USB strip that I can just plug it into. I then can dump the recording from the day over to that, have it on a secondary source. So now I can edit it. The other day I worked with a Taylor Swift tribute. I don't tell the bands unless I have to that I'm recording that day, And the reason why is mainly for an archive for myself. Now, if the venue doesn't want me to do it, if the artist doesn't want me to do it, stuff like that, I will never do it. Like I have on the 20th, I have a national artist coming through on tour, and they're doing an acoustic show at Moonshine Alley. A show like that, I will never ever record that. The reason why is because I need to get written permission from the record label, from the artist, their publishing company. You got to get everybody's signature on a piece of paper that says, yes, we give you permission to have it. And it's not because of violating any copyright laws or anything like that. It's because what if they perform a new song and they don't want that song out? Sure, people can pull up their phones. That's one thing. But if you have a live recording of somebody, that's intellectual property that belongs to somebody else. So I will always record a show for archives if it's on the local level, non-touring type of act. And then what I do is I say at the end of it, I listen back to it like I did the other day, and I heard the Taylor Swift one, and it sounded really, really good. It just needed some volume balancing in it. And so I messaged the drummer, who I know, Keith and Kendra, the lead singer of the band. I know them both. I'd say very good acquaintances from working in other bands with them. And I said to Keith, I said, hey, by the way, I'm out running some errands. I just finished listening to last night's recording. Would you like me to send you the files? He goes, would you? I said, absolutely. I think you'll enjoy them. They turned out really well. I set up file mail and I sent him all 20 files I had. And I'm going to ask him at some point, because I'll get a confirmation when he downloads them, which, they work jobs, they do other things. So as soon as I know, I'll know exactly what they think about it. So that's the other reason why gain structure is important, because if you're going to do live recording for archiving purposes, you got to have that in the right way. And you got to like I said, you got to always make sure that you're staying on top of things. So, for me, this is why I have these recordings, is so I can work on Super Rack, so I can break out a speaker, I can set up Super Rack, I can then fool around with it, I can hear what works, what doesn't. And I know I'm rambling here. So with that being said, I am going to say I will see everybody on the next gig log, which will be coming up next week, next Monday. I will probably end up inserting the time lapse so you guys can see that, so you can watch me do some of the setup process, because that's at the very beginning of it. And other than that, I will talk to everybody later. And don't forget, treat everybody as you want to be treated, and learn one thing every day. See you next time.